Welcome back to the show. And next, we'll be talking with the leader of DA opposition in Etekweni and member of the Etekwini EXCO. She is Nicole Graham to discuss something that is rather concerning indeed. She has raised the issue that Durban's business forums are crippling the local economy, and business has descended into thuggery and chaos. A very good morning to you, Nicole. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Julie. Thank you for having me, and good morning to your listeners.
Lovely to have you on the line, and thank you for alerting not only the people in that part of the world, but the entire South Africa of exactly what is happening. I should imagine that this is happening under the guise of RET, or would I be wrong when I pose that question or make that statement rather?
You're absolutely correct. And I think that what I set out in the article, which is up on Daily Maverick, is we have got, a situation where the policies and the practices of government have contributed to a system whereby it is expected that councillors and the local municipality in Durban, and it's spread throughout the country, to be honest, are actively involved in procurement, in saying who gets what work and where. And that effectively led to a situation where you've got criminal elements having a very big say in what's happening in the local economy, demanding work from both private enterprises and the state, and where it's become very difficult to do work, particularly construction, that kind of thing, in the city because of this.
So, Nicole, I assume some form of a business forum has been formed whereby they, under the guise of this forum, are touting and possibly even pressurizing for the work to come their way. So that kind of indicates it's lucrative to be a councillor, is it not? But having said that, this obviously is a very huge threat to the economic sustainability and future, not only of Durban, but as you indicate, this is almost rampant throughout the country. So obviously, this is a threat to the businesses in the rest of the country.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the first point is that we are already dealing with an economy in trouble. The Etekweni economy shed over 100,000 jobs in the last 2 years. So obviously COVID had a significant impact on construction and on manufacturing and related industries, but the economy wasn't in a good position to start with. Now you've got this, this influence. You've got constant work stoppages, as they term them, where business forums come to site and intimidate people who work there and demand access to the work. And no one's really measuring the impact of this. But the construction industry has shrunk by, I think it's close to 70% in the last 2 years, and this is definitely impacting that. It's become very difficult to do business, and there are very few avenues for assistance. If you run a business and people come to your site and threaten you and threaten your staff, it's very, very difficult to get assistance. And what people eventually end up doing is getting private security and court interdicts. That's really the solution that people are faced with, which is costly, and it's not available to everybody. It's available to big corporations. It's not available to, smaller operators. So
Obviously,
we've already got an economy. Yes, sorry.
No, carry on.
We've already got an economy in trouble. We've got, the prospects of a city that urgently needs investment. The state of the municipality, anybody who lives here will tell you that it's really, really poor. We've got an aging infrastructure and asset base that needs an injection of funds. And then you've got the threat to business, the businesses who are trying to operate legally, to create jobs, to get things done, are now facing this absolute chaos.
Obviously, as you've indicated, smaller businesses can't afford to take the matter to court. So they either collude or they just go out of business, they just go bust. I'm wondering if there isn't any form of support that these businesses can get. Is there some sort of backup in place apart from these business forums, because they sound like a gangster organization? In the past, I do know that the research, the city used to do ongoing research. They kept data on hand regarding what the impact has been on the economy. Something like this would be very useful, would it not? For the city and for these thugs to see how they damaging Etekweni municipality and possibly the rest of the country.
Well, I think, first of all, I think that the city keeping up to date information on what's happening and what the impact is really, really important. When you have the data before you, it makes decision making a lot easier. And I don't think that anybody really understands what's happening. I get calls almost daily from business owners about this, and I think that there's a real crisis in this regard. The city does have a policy and research unit, and I have suggested to them that they start to urgently track this. But the other side of the coin, and you quite correctly raised it, is what are the solutions? We have suggested that there be a sort of one-stop shop helpline where the state pools all available resources to really assist. If you have this problem on your hands as a business owner, what do you do? What are your options? And we urgently need those interventions, because currently, like you say, people see that it works, unfortunately, because no one's stopping it. So more and more people do it. And it's just become accepted, it's become legitimized. So we need a situation where there is help available, there is a pooling of resources, between intelligence, between Metro Police, between SAP, between security management, which is the municipal department, to say how do we best support businesses who are in this position and stop legitimizing the situation. The city has currently set up an office to sort of interface with the business forums, which I don't think is the correct solution. But it's not actually working because, unfortunately, when people operate outside of the boundaries of the law, they're not interested in lawful processes. So there really is an urgent need to start to address this and to give foothold to people who are stuck in this situation, who are trying to operate businesses and get on with it.
Exactly, Nicole. I think that these businesses vying for those contracts are also equally guilty, because they then go on and collude with these corrupt officials. I guess their thinking is, if I get this contract, if it means I've got to pay X amount, I'm still in a good space because I have a contract that's going to bring in X amount of revenue. So I can afford to pay a kickback or whatever it is, however you refer to it, of X thousand, because I'm still secured work for, I guess, the next 2-3 years. So that's the one part of the situation. How do you respond to that? Because that very definitely is happening as well.
I think we must be very careful to blame business owners who've been caught in the situation, because it is quite scary, and it is quite, these are people with guns who sometimes arrive with 20, 30, 40 people to intimidate staff, and and there's no help available. So there are lots of legitimate businesses who are getting caught in this web, simply because there are very limited options available. And, a lot of people choose to instead of fighting it just to kind of get on with it. But I think that, like I said earlier, the problem is that this has become legitimized. It's become accepted that this is just par for the course, and it really shouldn't be. So I think that it needs to be reimagined in terms of how this is looked at. We've now got situations, and everybody's got a different story to tell you, but where people are just demanding almost like protection fees, a cut of money, not for doing any work, but simply because, to allow your work to continue. I mean, it's completely ludicrous, the kinds of things that are going on here. And the only real role player that can stop it is the state. The only real role player that can say, enough is enough, we don't allow this to happen, and it's not going to happen anymore, is the municipality and government. But the difficulty is, or the reality is perhaps, that this is, in my opinion, an outcome of the state policies. The state created the system. Politicians could overreach and could interfere and could control what was happening. And this is the net result.
Yeah, like I referred to these councillors, these crooked councillors, as gangsters, but they seem to be even beyond that. It's like a mafia that is running this whole system. I have one or two very important questions to put to you, but before I go there, let's read a message from a listener. Leah Lynette Robery says that our government requires a mindset change. The system born during the transatlantic slave trade still exists and does not work for all. We need to learn to understand that we do not earn money. We eat what is grown out of the earth. Thank you for your input, Leah. Back to you, Nicole, and you were met with an incident in the year 2018. You were approached by an ANC councillor regarding a possibility that he might be arrested by the Hawks. Tell us that story, please.
So a lot of people now, I think, nationally know the DSW, the Ndile Gomede tender fraud case. But the real thrust of that case is that the allegations are that there were a number of councillors, I think the court at the time alleged 61, who were involved in subcontracting. So there were 4 main contractors who've all been arrested in the case, and then there were 61 councillors, allegedly, they have not all been named, were involved in subcontracting work. So the councillors were effectively the middle men and women between the contractors were selected by the politicians at a very high level and the community, and that's how the money was made, effectively. So there was this sort of period where a few arrests had been made, and to date, I think there are 8 councillors, maybe 7 councillors, one has passed away, who were arrested. But people knew that there was a situation where there were arrests looming, and fortunately there haven't been any more, and that there'd been ward councillors that were involved. This councillor approached me and sort of said he knew that I was familiar with the case and what was happening, and said, "Do you know if I'm going to be arrested?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, am I on the list?" And I said, "But well, have you done anything that would warrant you being arrested? Surely you know the answer to that better than I would." And when I explained to him, why people were being arrested, he sort of said, "Well, everybody does that. Everybody is involved in the subcontractor." And I think that is the reason I included that in the article. That is symptomatic of the problem, that we've got this culture that is developed where politicians are reasonably expected to be involved in business, and even where it's not strictly illegal, there's this continuous blurring of the lines where contractors are involved in submitting, councillors are involved in submitting names of contractors, councillors are involved in selecting labour, councillors are involved in all these ways in business that I don't believe that they should be. And the net result is that there's this really grey area where there's all kinds of, blurring of the rule of law, of the principles of the free market. And that's really, in my opinion, how we got here, which is what I argue in the article, that we've got this increased blurring of what's happened. And people don't, I think they do understand, but it's become just accepted that it's part of life and you can get away with it. And unfortunately, lots of people have got away with it.
2018, National Treasury cautioned that this kind of localized, it's no longer localized, is it? It's a national procurement should not be happening. Do you think they have a plan that they might put forward and try and curb this type of thievery or thuggery, call it what you will, but it is just not on, it is illegal?
Look, I think that at the moment we're seeing a lot of lip service, but we're not seeing a lot of action. The mayor, Nicole Graham, has spoken strongly about business forums, but there are is a real failure to address them in a meaningful way, and that is where we will see the rubber hitting the road. I think that unless there are practical ways in which people are stopped from doing this, it's going to continue. And I think we've seen a very dramatic incline in how it's been happening over the past couple of years. And the risks for the economy here are very, very real. There's no use in National Treasury putting out circulars saying, you shouldn't be doing this, but no one ever enforces it and no one ever checks up and just continues. So I think at the moment, I'm not convinced that there is the political will and that there is the ability to turn this around. I think it is important that it happens. I think it's critical that it happens, but I am not particularly optimistic at this point.
Okay, Nicole, I am going to have to end it here, but I do have a message from Leah once again. It's not very complimentary, but I am going to read it out. And in the same vein, I also need to put this question to you. Having written this article, being so vociferous about your views on this illegal practice, a lot of people seem to find it very acceptable. Are you not putting yourself in the firing line? That's the one issue. Let me read the message and then you can respond to both. Leah is saying, I personally know of many counselors who do good work for people suffering in poverty. You're painting them all with the same brush. Should we do the same to you based on your forefathers' actions? Your thoughts, your response, Nicole.
Well, I mean, I am a counsellor, so of course there are good counsellors and bad counsellors, and I like to consider that I am a good counsellor, and I don't think anyone should be framed in terms of what people did before them that aren't them. I think people should be judged on individual merit and actions, and that is the basis of my politics. The politics that I advocate for and the society that I believe in and that the Democratic Alliance believes in is a society in which your position in life is not determined by the color of your skin or your history or where you were born, but on what you can do and the opportunities that you've had and how you use them. So, of course, they're good counsellors and, of course, they're bad counsellors. Unfortunately, at the moment, there are more bad counsellors than good counsellors. And I think that you can see that in how our local governments are being run. With regards to myself, politics in eThekwini is a dangerous game, and that is just, the nature of the business. So there's only so much I can say about that. We have to stand up for what's right and get on with it, and that's what we try to do.
Nicole, lovely talking to you. Please keep safe. Thank you indeed for the article and your thoughts on issues in, well, I can't say Etekweni, I should say throughout the country. But all I can say to you, thank you indeed, and keep safe, go well.
Thank you, Julie. Take care.
That was Nicole Graham, leader of DA opposition in Etekweni and member of the Etekwini EXCO, talking to us about, obviously, the nefarious practices, business practices within council, or procurement practices in council. 9:16 exactly, news and views right here on Salam Media. We'll be back with you in a minute or two, and we are going to be talking with Patrick Moha Lucy, member of Operation Dudula.